Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third round of the TCR UK Championship for 2019, along with the Dunlop Tyres Touring Car Trophy. Some tin-top action on its way to you now, with a 23-minute plus one lap race around the magnificent Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. The TCR UK Championship in its second season, joining in with the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy for 2019, which sees a real variety of 2-litre touring cars. Basically, if you have a 2-litre touring car, you're eligible to race in this championship in one class or another. The bulk of the field made up with TCR cars, but a couple of NGTC cars, an S2000 car on the entry list this weekend as well, although sadly I fear we're not going to see the Ford Focus out on track, despite it being on the entry for this weekend. The car's about to head out onto their green flag lap with the Hyundai i30N of Lewis Kent on pole position. Lewis had a disaster at Alton Park the season opener a few weeks ago, where the car had mechanical issues that meant he couldn't take part in either of the races. But Lewis, who was a podium finisher last year in TCR UK, looking for his first ever victory, and today could be the day that he gets it. Well, my name is Andy McEwen, alongside me Scott Woodwis for this one. TCR UK in its second season. Let's be honest, not the biggest of grids, but we do see good racing. And Alton Park last time out saw two spectacular encounters, didn't it?
Well, they do say you only need 2 cars to make a race. Yes, we've got 8 here, but the fact is, look at the qualifying times. The top 7 of these 8 cars were separated less than a second. In fact, the total spread was 1.074 seconds. So the fact is, yes, it's a smaller grid, but it's very competitive.
Indeed it is, and Lewis Kent heads that competitive grid, with Max Coates making his Touring Car Trophy debut in a TCR car, but it's not homologated to current TCR regulations, so he runs in the TCT class. We'll give you more info on that in a moment. Darryl Wilson is back as well in his Astra. He is third, with James Turkington in the car owned by Maximum Motorsport Stuart Lyons, who is these days the boss man of TCR UK. James Turkington making his TCR UK debut. Again, more on that in a moment. Henry Neal, younger son of 3-time British Touring Car champion Matt, is 5th, with Mark Wakefield making his debut, former Mini Challenge competitor and frontrunner in the VW Racing Cup, with Nick Halstead and Alex Day on the back row of the grid. On board here with James Turkington. Now, James, last time out at Alton Park, was racing his Seat Leon Super Copa car, which was running in a class of its own, wasn't as competitive as some of the more modern machinery. So this weekend, he's out in Stuart Lyons' car that won the second race in Alton Park in the hands of last year's runner-up Ollie Taylor. So the car is quick, James is a quick driver, and with the Turkington name on board, you know he's going to be pretty good. What are we expecting from the youngster here today? I think,
possibly, I'd be surprised if he wasn't on the podium at some point, at some stage. I think the fact if he can get a good start, get himself past at least a Roe Wilson, even possibly take advantage of the fact that, yes, Max Coates is in a DSG car, but he's still very quick. I mean, he's on the front row of the grid, so Max is no slouch. He's been a front runner, even still in the Renault Clio Cup at the moment, so the fact he's sampling a bit of touring car action as well means he should be pretty quick. But James Turkington in 4th place from there for the second row of the grid. If he gets a good start, good chance for at least a podium. If he can even work himself up there, a win's not out of the question either. Could be on the cards if he can work himself up there pretty quickly.
Well, exactly, because the 3 drivers in front of him have never won a race in this championship either, so we are very, very likely to see, in fact, we're guaranteed to see a new winner for this season, because Carl Swift and Ollie Taylor, the 2 winners from Alton Park, are not here. Carl Swift has sold his car now, and Mark Wakefield is the new owner. So Mark is, I believe the car was delivered this weekend to the circuit for Mark. He was a bit of a last-minute entry, so good to see him out there, but he's very much still learning the car. Carl Swift inherited the season opening race victory after Henry Neal and Ollie Taylor, after a race-long battle, made contact at the first corner, which ended in Ollie in the barriers, Henry in the barriers and Ollie's side. Thankfully, they were both okay, and miraculously, the cars were both out again for race 2, a race in which Ollie Taylor came from the back of the grid to take the race victory. So we're guaranteed a new winner. None of the drivers on the grid today have ever won a TCR UK race or a Touring Car Trophy race, of course. The Touring Car Trophy very much in its infancy. That caters for not only TCR cars, but also NGTC cars, S2000 cars. In theory, if you have a World Touring Car spec car from a few years ago, was that TC1 they called it, didn't they? Then it is eligible. If it's a 2-litre touring car, you can come and race in the Touring Car Trophy. Max Coates, we mentioned, is in a TCR car with that DSG gearbox. Now, the DSG gearbox is heavier and the gear change is a bit slower, but Max is a really good driver, so that's why he's on the front row. This is what I mean, it's a fascinating dynamic now with the variety of cars out there. To the outside, they all look very, very similar, but inside there are some quite different machines out there, and it usually produces fascinating racing. There's a BOP as well in place because you score points based on outright finish, not finishing within your class, so the classes in theory are balanced to guarantee close, exciting racing. Alex Day's Audi appears to be a pit lane start, but everybody else on the grid are ready to go racing for round 3 of the Touring Car Trophy, and TCR UK, away we go. Lewis Kent makes a good start from pole position. Darrell Wilson is away well as well from the inside of row number 2, but Max Coates, I think, might just be able to hang on to second place. Yes, he can, dives for the inside line, but Lewis Kent out in front, turns through Redgate Corner, clear of the rest of the field. Coates in second, round the outside is coming Mark Wakefield. James Turkington fends him off for the time being. A clean start, and I am watching Henry Neal, who is trying to make progress already from the back of the grid.
Yeah, trying to 2 for the price of 1-1. The marketplace goes flying courtesy of Darrell Wilson. Around the outside, the pair of the Cupras goes Henry Neal into 4th place on the inside, up through the right hand of the old hairpin. So a good start for Henry already, and back in the 5th position goes James Turkington at the expense of Mark Wakefield. At the back of the third is Nick Housen. He's also doing double duty this weekend in the Ginettas, but it's his first race weekend, of course, in that new Fox Motorsport Run Honda Civic as they turn their way through McLean's for the first time. So a good clean start from everyone involved, up towards Coppers for the first time, and Lewis Kent making the most of his excursion up to Spa and TCR Europe with everything he's learned about that car into the lead of the race towards the chicane for the first time. But Max Coates in that DSG gearbox car in 2nd place. We know he's quick, but even so, very impressive to keep Darrell Wilson at bay in the opening lap in 2nd place.
Worth remembering as well, the top 3 cars carrying no success ballast here this weekend, because Max Coates and Darrell Wilson weren't at Alton Park, and Lewis Kent might as well have not been there because he didn't get out of race at all, so they are running lighter than Henry Neal in 4th. It's side by side for 5th as Mark Wakefield is up the inside of James Turkington. The 2 Cupras doing battle, the 2 cars that last year were run out of the same team. This time around, Mark Wakefield very much running his own car, but he is up the inside of James Turkington, who maybe is just trying to slowly but surely warm up to this car. It's the first racing lap he's ever competed in a TCR car. James Turkington down 1 more position. Mark Wakefield, by contrast, has a bit more experience of this place. He won yesterday in the VW Racing Cup, championship that he is very much a championship contender in. So opening lap is completed then. Lewis Kent leads the way by 7/10 of a second over Max Coates in 2nd. Darrell Wilson is 3rd. Henry Neal 4th. Mark Wakefield 5th. James Turkington 6th. And Nick Halstead 7th. Sadly, we haven't seen the Audi of Alex Day out there. I saw it in the pit lane. It hasn't made its way onto the circuit. The only rear-wheel drive car on the grid. Sadly, not out there at the moment. Indeed, there it is, up on the jacks. Clearly some sort of mechanical issue. That's a shame. That's a very popular car, isn't it? The car formerly raced by Rob Austin in the BTCC. Some mechanical maladies keeping him out of the race for the time being.
Yeah, affectionately known as Sherman to many of its fans when it raced back in the day, but it's sad to see. And it would have been interesting to see that car off the line, because rear-wheel drive is quicker off the line than front-wheel drive, as we know from other touring car championships around the world. Rear-wheel drive would have got him a good start up a couple of places, but hopefully they can get that car sorted out for race 2 later on. Darrell Wilson, I was watching before we cut to that shot, very aggressive into the old hairpin, and people were saying on social media they're admiring his commitment through Copper's Corner. So Darrell Wilson, he's a driver certainly, he can take a car by the scruff of the neck, and with the fact I've seen a photo of that car with all 4 wheels off the ground last year at Knock Hill on the first circuit, he knows how to pretty much get the most out of the car and push it to the limit. And being in 3rd place at the moment certainly shows that he's giving it what for now, as Henry Neal come under threat from Mark Wakefield down the outside line. And Mark Wakefield, of course, in his TCR UK debut, very impressive to run against Henry Neal, who's of course raced that car already once this season. Of course, he's one of the sons of Matt Neal, the multiple British touring car champion. But Mark Wakefield, in his first race, he learns quickly.
Doesn't he just? And he's just set the outright fastest first sector. He is one of the fastest cars on the track at the moment, and a podium is not out of the question here. Darrell Wilson's had a moment though, unfortunately, and so Henry Neal, who is flashing his lights at the green Astra across the start-finish line, looks to try and close in, but he's got Mark Wakefield at the inside for 4th position. Mark Wakefield late on the brakes, goes through. Nice move made. I cannot say enough good things about Mark Wakefield. We've been impressed with him all season long in the VW Cup. He was a decent mini racer a few years ago as well. This is the first race he's ever competed in a TCR car, and he's just overtaken the son of multiple British touring car champion Matt Neal, but Henry in his own right is a very accomplished racing driver as well. Mark Wakefield could win this race.
And also, just go back to that move, Henry Neal was racing up because he saw the Wakefield was going to the inside line. Rather than try and cut across in typical touring car styles to defend the move, he thought, no, I'm going to give him the space up the inside line and made a clean pass, because he knows it's a long race. It's a 23-minute plus 1 lap race. He knows that if he tries to defend him in the first couple of laps, it may not work out. So he's going to try and sit there in 5th position, taking out the bollards on the inside of the corners as he goes along through Coppice Corner. But sit there in 5th position, try and stay with him, and possibly try and bide his time a little bit, not for too long, bide his time a little bit further, try and stay with Mark Wakefield, try and make some progress up through the order, and try and do so. Now, looking at the front of the field there, I saw that Lewis Kent wasn't as quick in the chicane as Max Coates, and the gap is 1.1 seconds. Gone up a little bit, but Max Coates is doing pretty well to not only keep up with Lewis Kent, who's pulling away in the lead, but he's pulling away from Darrell Wilson, who now has Henry Neal going up the inside of Mark Wakefield, up the hairpin again. So that's revenge for Redgate Corner, I feel. However, back up the inside of the switchback goes Mark Wakefield and says, not quite, Henry, try and get the next corner. Henry says, right, then I'll go around the outside if you don't mind.
The NGTC cars, of which, in theory, Henry Neal is the only car out there which is an NGTC spec car, are better on the brakes, but they maybe lack a bit of top speed, so that's where Henry has to try and make his moves. Mark Wakefield, though, has bounced back from that really rapidly and is already back alongside Darrell Wilson for 3rd position. Goes to the outside at Redgate, watch for the switchback again on the exit, tees it up nicely, superior traction, better speed off the corner, and Mark Wakefield trying to get into a podium position here. I think is about to go through, is he? They almost lean on each other. Darrell Wilson won't back out of this without a fight, and Mark Wakefield, in his brand new car, decided not to try and go around the outside of the train of curves. He knows he's quicker, he knows the chance is going to come, but he's getting backed up now into everybody behind him.
Henry Neal right on the rear wing of Mark Wakefield here, and also keep watching out for James Turkington, and also credit Nick Houston as well. This is his first race in the TCR car, and he's keeping pace with the pack, so rather falling back, and he's normally used to a small rear-wheel drive Jetta. He's done plenty of testing in that Honda Civic, got himself up to pace. We now ride on board with James Turkington on the sprint up towards Coppice Corner, top of the hill. Big sideways moment for Darrell Wilson as he hits the apex. We told you he was committed to that right-hander, but now he's coming under threat, and Mark Wakefield's putting himself alongside if he can. If he can dive up the inside into the chicane, it's not as tight as it was in previous years, so it's a much more open, faster sequence of corners into the S as it was previously before. Darrell Wilson going very deep across the curves. Henry Neal and James Turkington keeping watch as the top two really have pulled away pretty substantially, but it's all action stations behind the 3rd place as Wilson now tries to defend from Wakefield. He goes down the outside into the Melbourne Loop, but still Darrell Wilson won't give way, and we will. He goes down the outside. There was a bit of contact, but Houston again at the back of the field. Wakefield trying to get himself down the inside line, and he has got through. They're all squeezing up under the brakes, still concertinaing up into the hairpin. This is fantastic.
This is proper touring car racing, isn't it? This is brilliant stuff. 5 cars, and you can throw a handkerchief over the lot of them. Into 3rd place has gone Wakefield, Wilson down to 4th, and James Turkington thinks, I'll have a bit of this. Turkington and Neal, side by side into Redgate Corner. I've heard that somewhere before. Into the right-hander they go. Henry Neal on the inside line, might be a bit slower off the turn, and so James Turkington tries to get to the inside. Are they going to be side by side through Hollywood? Not quite. James, again, first time in that car, and it's not actually his car, so I suppose he tried to look after it as much as he can, decides to back out of the manoeuvre. This is fabulous racing, Scott.
Yeah, regardless of how many cars with, but these guys are putting on a proper show here, showing exactly what touring car racing should be and is in the UK. As Darrell Wilson now under threat from Henry Neal, restarts his curve off towards Schwantz and into the complex at McLean's. And Henry Neal doing very well to try and keep pit pace, but Darrell Wilson is not shy to throw that car into every single corner at every single opportunity he gets, as Neal spots an opportunity up the inside line. Ron Ball with Turkington going down the outside into Coppice Corner. It's a blind apex to turn through the right-hander. Turkington trying to brave it out around the outside, but if he can stay, they'll have the inside run for the S's. It is 4 cars together, but they're putting on one heck of a display. This is fantastic.
This is brilliant stuff, isn't it? Down to the chicane they go. Turkington up the inside of Neal again. Don't make contact, boys. No, they just about kept it clean. You can see there, though, how the Cupra was quicker in a straight line than the Honda, but the Honda can run rings around them through the corners. Fascinating racing. Remember, Henry is also carrying some success ballast here this weekend, and he goes up the inside of Darrell Wilson at the hairpin. There's going to be contact. They almost trade a bit of pace. Henry Neal alongside, but the next corner is a left-hander, and Wilson, in theory, should have the poke up the hill towards Goddard's. Wheel to wheel then for 4th place. Darrell Wilson on the inside, Henry Neal on the outside. James Turkington and Nick Halstead trying to take advantage if these two make contact, which they just about avoid again, and this time Henry Neal might have bought himself a ticket to the inside line, leaning on each other down the pit straight. Turkington might make it 3 abreast here. Henry Neal does not want to back out of this. He's finally going to go through, and James Turkington round the outside of everybody comes through as well. Brilliant racing. Bit of a bang of wheels on the exit of the corner as Darrell Wilson feels a bit mugged there, really. He was ahead of these two quite comfortably a corner or two ago, and now he's doing his best to try and hang on. He hangs on to one position at least, but Henry Neal has gone through. Again, brilliant touring car racing. That Turkington either sideways on his own or had a bit of contact from Nick Halstead behind, gathers it all together. You don't really know where to look next, especially given the fact that the top two just set identical new fastest laps of the race. Lewis Kent and Max Coates, a 1:37.007, exactly the same lap time to the thousandth of a second. There they are. The gap is still about 9/10, but they are literally matching each other thousandth per thousand.
And the crucial thing is, whilst they've all been scrapped behind, they've taken full advantage, because the harder these guys behind fight each other, the easier it is for the cars in front to start to make a break in front. And Mark Wakefield is a clear example of that. In third place, but he's pulled away whilst everyone's been scrapping to the tune of 2.8 seconds whilst everyone has been battling behind. So he's on course for third place, but he's left everyone behind whilst they've been scrapping amongst each other. It's great racing, but at the expense of losing out on a possible podium. Everyone's back there fighting for fourth. Mark is like, see you later, boys. I'm going to try and get a podium and try and chase after the two guys in front.
Thinking ahead to race 2 later on, I know we've still got 13 minutes plus 1 lap left of the first race of the day, but if things finish as they are now, Wakefield for a race 2 win is a real possibility, because he will be lighter than these two success ballast-wise for the second race later on. For the time being, though, let's focus on the race leaders, and the gap has come down because Max Coates has now taken the fastest lap for himself, a 1:36.991, and gets the gap down by 1/10 of a second on that occasion. The DSG Cupra, as I said, with the slightly more weight, will that work the tyres harder? The track temperature at the moment is over 31 degrees and it's getting hotter. Extra weight means the tyres are having to work harder. Is Max going to be able to keep this pace up to the checkered flag?
It's going to be tough, but I have to say, sort of whether he can keep it up or not, kudos to Max being able to keep pace with Lewis Kent in a sequential gearbox TCR car. Usually we've been told the DSG cars are supposed to be slow, but nobody told Max Coates that, because he's managed to keep pace with Lewis. And Lewis is no slouch either, of course. He's been a front runner before. He was recently at Spa for TCR European. Before that, he was a front runner in the Fiesta Championship. He's also been a Fiesta Junior before that. So he's always been trained in front wheel drive, as pretty much has Max throughout his racing career up to this point. Of course, Max is a front runner in the Clio Cup as well. So these guys know front wheel drive inside out in the younger stages of their career. And Max is doing everything he can to hold with Lewis Kent. And let's not take away from the fact that Lewis Kent is driving brilliantly in the Hyundai. He was out in Portugal with the Hyundai Works team at the beginning of the season to really sort that car out after a bit of an up and down season last year. Got a couple of podiums, but he's managed to really get the most out of that Hyundai car, have the benefit of working with the Works team over the winter, and now he really is proving his pace as a front runner. But Max Coates for second place, all credit where credit is due. He's doing a fantastic job to keep pace with him.
He really is, isn't he? These two are still fractionally quicker than Wakefield in third. Henry Neal, by the way, in fourth position on the previous lap, was fractionally quicker than Wakefield as well, so we'll keep an eye to that gap. This is the battle that's going on for fifth place then. James Turkington trying desperately to find a way past the DW Racing car of Darrell Wilson. Darrell, a former front runner in the VW Racing Cup as well. Turkington, who's done most of his racing in Ireland, but did used to race in Mini Challenge with Henry Neal and Mark Wakefield. So he was saying it's a bit like a Mini Challenge reunion from 3 or 4 years ago. Has looked to the inside of the Astra into Redgate Corner. They both hook up the apex, there's no way through, and Nick Halstead is still right with them as well. So 3 cars fighting over 5th position here, and the 3 of them separated by just a fraction over a half a second at the line. Down the hill they go then. James Turkington still very much getting used to this car, and Darrell, I don't think has done a huge amount of winter testing with this machine. He was out for selected rounds of TCR UK last year, and again missed the season opener this season at Alton Park. So in a way, all 3 of these drivers sort of learning as they go, and they're stuck together in this nose-to-tail battle at the same time.
It's great to watch them learn how the characteristics of their car literally right in front of us whilst they're battling. As Darrell Wilson goes wide on the exit, McLean's, he was pushing a little bit too deep, and up the inside goes James Turkington to take 5th position up the inside. Nick Halstead might get an opportunity to try and sneak past also, but Darrell Wilson shuts the door. So Darrell Wilson, you can't fault his commitment, but sometimes he does get the better of him on occasion, as we saw just there.
That was a typical Turkington move, wasn't it? We've seen his brother Colin execute exactly the same thing in the past. If you're not quite quick enough to get through cleanly, rather than barge people out of the way, apply the pressure, let them make the mistake, and then you can drive straight on through. We've seen Colin do it countless times, and clearly rubbing off on his younger brother as well. Nick Halstead now tries to take advantage of the dirt on Darrell Wilson's tyres and goes through into 6th position as well. So Wilson, unfortunately, having started 3rd, ran as high as, held on to that 3rd place on the opening lap and then started to drop back. And unfortunately, is he going to be fall right to the back of the grid? He's trying to fight back again into Goddard's. Halstead, though, in that brand new Honda Civic, is going to hang on. That, I believe, is the car that Josh Price raced on occasion and won the final round of the championship here at Donington Park in very wet conditions last season, albeit on the national circuit. Here's the replay. I'm not sure how much front tyre Darrell Wilson's got left, but the car didn't look like it wanted to turn there, did it?
Well, not much left after that bounding across the grass, putting mud and dirt onto it as well, and that would have really affected his grip as he turned to Cockney's corner. You can see a little bit of oversteer as he turned in, but had enough momentum to sweep in front and hold there. So he's had a bit of an eventful race, but I'm pretty sure he'll probably leave this race with quite a smile on his face at the end of it, having enjoyed himself up and down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And Darrell does really enjoy his racing. Former star of the VW Racing Cup as well. There's a theme here, isn't there? Lewis Kent, though, is now starting to pull away. He's set a new fastest lap of the race, 1:36.872. He's now a second and a half clear of Max Coates. Maybe that is that tyre situation just starting to swing back the way of Lewis. Lewis, though, last year had all sorts of problems with tyre wear. I guess, as you'd expect for a young driver who'd been racing in junior categories before, never raced on slick tyres either before he came into TCR UK. He would be very, very quick for 3 or 4 laps and then be surprised when he got to the end of the race and the tyres were down to the canvas. He's definitely worked on that. That's one of the things, no doubt, that they would have done and worked on during this Portimao test that he did, where he really impressed some of the factory Hyundai drivers. So Lewis Kent, everyone who knows anything about touring car racing is saying he is a star of the future, but he's never won a TCR UK race today. He's now only 8.25 minutes plus a lap away from potentially achieving that.
Let's hope that's not a commentator's curse. Max Coates is still there by 1.6 seconds. But it seems that after the early excursions, it seems to kind of just calm down a little bit. Although, as you say, Mark Wakefield has just been closed down a little bit by Henry Neal on this stage. Looking at the last lap times, he was last time by. Neil was about 2 tenths quicker last time around. So Henry Neal just closing the gap in, but only taking a couple of tenths out. He needs to take more of that if he wants a chance of getting third place. But credit where credit's due, Mark Wakefield. He probably think it is like back in the mini challenge days. But third place, Mark Wakefield on his debut in TCR UK. We've backed him about him so many times already. But a great drive nonetheless so far. If he can round off this first race with the podium, it'll be even better. He's going the right way about it. But the question is, has Henry Neal got enough tyre left in that Honda Civic NGTC to start to close down on him and take that podium away in the last 7.5 minutes?
Well, that's the other fascination, isn't it, as well? Does the NGTC car maybe look after its tyres a bit better because it's running on slightly less power? Who knows? It's all fascination of this BOP, and it's the first season that we've had the NGTC cars and the TCR cars racing together. We're still learning who the advantage will go to on a long run. At Alton Park, we had 2 fairly long races, but a slightly smaller grid, and very much it was all about Ollie Taylor and Henry Neal fighting for the race victories. We didn't really get to see lap times as such because they were locked in combat right the way through. Here today at Donington Park, though, Nick Halstead discovers that that curb is quite bouncy and probably not good for the suspension either. Loses some traction off the chicane. But yeah, here at Donington Park, a circuit that does punish the tyres. We're starting maybe now to see who has got their tyre management working the best. Race leader Lewis Kent then has just completed his 10th lap of the race. He's now 1.8 seconds clear of Max Coates in second position. The gap we're watching really is the gap between the 3rd place man Mark Wakefield and the 4th place man Henry Neal, as a black and white warning flag goes out to Nick Halstead for exceeding track limits. I think we just saw the offence that he's been warned for at the chicane. So on the previous lap, Wakefield he did a 38.1, Neal did a 37.8, so just less than 0.3 of a second quicker. It's coming down, but it's creeping down, isn't it? It's not coming down in big chunks.
Yeah, we talk about tyres, of course. One thing that's to be crucial is the biggest tyres come under the most stress. It's giving the front left, because of course it's a clockwise circuit, and the fact you're leaning on that tyre so much means I'm pretty sure there'll be some fairly heavily worn front left tyres by the time we're finished. A little wide on the exit there from the old haircut Henry Neal as he's trying to push on to close the gap down to get it under 2 seconds. But Henry Neal, of course, is every bit like his father Matt, of course, and trying to get himself up there. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up further afield into touring cars, using one of these older NGTC cars as a practicing ground, proving ground for him to try and get himself up there and learn this craft. And it wouldn't surprise me in the next couple of years we see him in one of the top levels of touring cars in this country and possibly getting up there on the grid, even alongside his father one day.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? We've had a pair of Collards racing together in the BTCC before, and now we've got potentially, well, Matt's got 2 sons who are both fairly rapid racers. Henry, who was here racing here, and Will as well, who they've raced in the mini challenge together. But yeah, that's one of the benefits of this touring car trophy, isn't it? You can use maybe a couple of years old NGTC car to learn the car, to learn the category, learn the style of racing, rather than jumping straight into what is probably one of the most competitive touring car championships in the world, and finding yourself slightly out of your depth. Henry had a bit of a moment there at the Melbourne Hairpin, didn't he? I don't know whether he got in the wrong gear or something coming out of the corner, but he will almost certainly have lost some time to Wakefield on this occasion. Yes, he has, about a 10.5 slower than the Cupra in front. Quicker than Henry Neal was James Turkington. So James Turkington on the previous lap took 1.2 seconds out of Henry Neal. Part of that because of a mistake, partly though because James Turkington just put in another personal best lap on lap 11 with a track temperature of 32 degrees. That's impressive.
I suspect he's been looking after those tyres much better than these guys from in front. Let's be fair, the 4 guys in front are probably pushing much harder on his tyres than James has, and effectively he's got more tyre life left in him before by the end of the race. So I think you're absolutely right, Andy. The fact that he's managed to get second out of the two cars in front means that Henry Neal might not necessarily be comfortable in fourth place. It might necessarily be, can Henry Neal catch Mark Wakefield? Can James Turkington catch Henry Neal?
Yeah, or maybe they'll all constitute together here. We've still got 4 minutes plus 1 lap. The race distances in TCR UK 23 minutes plus 1 lap. And as they head out of Coppice and onto the back straight again, we'll watch the sector times with interest too. In sector 1, Wakefield a 21.5, Neal a 21.5, Turkington 21.4. It's really through the middle sector and the final sector where you need those front tyres to be working. Through the middle sector, you've got high-speed right-handers at McLean's and Coppice, and then the final sector, you need the traction out of the hairpins. Let's see what the second sector times are like there. Pretty much, no, Turkington was half a second quicker than them in the middle sector. Turkington is coming, and again, this is very reminiscent of what we would see from Colin. He's good at looking after his tyres. He thinks it through, doesn't he? It's not just health leather from the first corner. Let the race come to you. If you look after your tyres, they will look after you in the final 5 minutes.
Yeah, so let's see what he can do to try and close it. I've just noticed we had an extra car add on to the timing stream because it looks like Alex Day has popped himself onto the circuit after his problems. He is 10 laps down, but I think he'll certainly use it as an example to try and get out there and just try and gain some time in there. Head up towards Redgate Corner once again. James Turkington now looking at the lap time last time by, took another 7/10 out of it. So the gap is now 1.8 seconds. We ride on board with James up now through the Crater curves towards the old hairpin. You can see visibly there'll be like a target, imaginary target on the back of Henry Neal's car. James is zooming in closer and closer. So I'm going to have you towards by the end of the race. And looking at the times, I think he will.
Well, let's see. So he's 1.8 seconds back. As you said, on the previous lap, he was 7/10 quicker. At that rate, he'll need 3 laps to get within striking distance, realistically, of Henry. Unless, of course, he can get close-ish and then force a mistake out of the Honda, perhaps, which could happen. Either way, I think he will get there. Whether or not he will find a way through is another matter. But James, remember, is still learning this car. This is his 13th ever racing lap in the thing, and Henry Neal has quite a bit more experience in his car. It is a former Matt Neal BTCC car as well, so I'm sure Matt's been able to hand over a few tips as to how to make that car tick. James is only going to get quicker this weekend, whereas Henry is, you would imagine, already operating pretty much at the limit. So if James is already taking sort of half a second a lap out of Henry, then this does bode well for the Irish driver. Down the hill they go. Henry keeps taking this very tight line. He sort of runs down the middle of the road into Melbourne, which is the traditional defensive line, if you like. But James is not yet close enough to apply the pressure. It's easy for me to say, sat from my commentary box, but I don't quite understand why he's doing that, and it does seem to be losing him a bit of time through there.
Well, the only reason you do that is if you had a car in front of him, he'd be moving out to try and keep the car cool, but there's no car in front of him that's going to cause a problem. So whether it's just simply just him taking an unusual line or just running a little bit wide off the exit of the corner and just the momentum of the car carries him back into the middle of the road, we'll have to wait and see. We're coming up now to, I think, it should be the last lap on the regular time. Of course, we'll have +1 lap on top of that. So gap last time by has come down again by another 0.4 to 1.4. Now, in the first sector, it looks as though the Honda Civic is a little bit better because on the last time by, Henry was a 10th quicker in sector 1, but it's in sectors 2 and 3, which you were speaking about earlier, Anthony, where the Cooper seems to be much quicker. As we look back towards the front, we've almost forgotten about these guys on the front. I was looking at the battles behind, but Lewis Ken holding on to the gap now, 2.4 seconds to the good ahead of this man, Max Coates. He'll try and put himself a little bit further up the grid for race 2 later on. But Lewis Kent, of course, on course now. Only got about another lap to do now after this one. And he's on course potentially for his first TCR UK victory. But, of course, as well, Max Coates, we don't forget he'll be second, but also he will be top touring car trophy machine home as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. As I said, you score points based on outright finishes, but there are trophies for winning your individual class as well. So Lewis Kent perhaps looking good for his first ever TCR UK victory, but on his first appearance in the Touring Car Trophy, Max Coates in the car that's owned by a good friend of his, Guy Colclough, and they share the car racing in some longer distance racing. Of course, another advantage of particularly the DSG gearboxed TCR cars is that they're very, very good at long distance endurance racing too. We're going to get 2 more laps out of this because such is the advantage for these two. They've crossed the line with 9 seconds still to go, plus another lap. So 2 laps remain essentially. That could prove critical for James Turkington, couldn't it? Because it gives him another lap to try and reel in Henry Neal. Lewis Kent heads out of Redgate Corner. He'll be glad, I think, that the car is working. He was dejected at Alton Park at the problems he had, but he was saying that you can drop your 2 worst scores of the year. So as long as he doesn't have another non-finish, he can sort of forget Alton Park ever happened and hopefully bounce back as the season goes on. Back with the 5th place man, James Turkington, 1.1 seconds behind, so he's taken 4 tenths out of Henry Neal on the previous 2 laps. That's not a big difference from the half a second he was taking previously, but it might just be enough for Henry to hang on to this. Yeah,
by the time they exit the second sector, effectively, the gap was pretty much staying the same because, again, it's through sector 1 where the Honda's much closer. So the previous lap time, last time by, they were pretty much equal, but a couple of laps before that, it was looking good. Meanwhile, car number 50, Darrell Wilson, has been exceeding the track limits, enjoying himself a bit too much because now going to suffer a 5-second time penalty for track limits. He's already back in 7th place, so it's not really going to affect where he is. It'll just be a further sort of knock to whatever he's done so far. There's the confirmation on the screen. Their 5-second time penalty for Darrell Wilson in the Vauxhall Astra. Looking at the gap now, that visibly looks like now, Mandy, less than a second to me.
Interestingly, Henry Neal just did his personal best lap of the race on the previous lap, 37.5, so he's clearly got some tyre life left underneath him. But James Turkington, yeah, I would say is catching. In the first sector on this lap, he was fractionally quicker. In the second sector, it's a full 10th, and then the third sector really does seem to be where he is strong. Mark Wakefield did not seem like he was 2.1 seconds ahead of Henry Neal there either, so we'll watch these gaps with interest. Across the line go the leaders, onto the final lap of the race then, 2 seconds between those two. There's Mark Wakefield. Now the gap between he and Henry Neal was 2.1 seconds. As they cross the line at the end of lap number 15, it is now 1.7, and James Turkington is now within a second of Henry Neal, so you have to assume there was a mistake somewhere there for Mark Wakefield. I don't think he's all of a sudden developed an issue with that car. I also don't think it's quite going to be enough for Henry to catch him, but it really is all about this 5-4 now. Can James Turkington do it?
It have to be on the second half of the lap because we know how strong, I keep saying it, how quick Henry is through this first part of the section. But James, of course, with the better tyre life, it seems, he's learning to try and match through the complex. And actually, he was 0.2 of a second quicker this time by. So the gap is now down to roughly just less than half a second. You can see how blissfully close it is as they climb up through Schwanzkopf up towards McLean's. Now feeling possibly, unless Henry Neal can get his elbows out proper touring car style, James Turkington may possibly see Henry as a sitting duck here, out of McLean's up towards Coppers. I think Wakefield is trying to escape up the road. I think he may just about be safe for the time being. If we go back on board with Turkington, down the back straight towards the S's, it'll be through the S's and up towards the 2 hairpins where he'll possibly get a chance to do so. If he's going to do it, it'll have to be a dive up the inside or a calculated move to try and get a switch back on the exit of either corner down towards it. But you can see how much better the car is on the brakes with the slow corners. Visibly, meanwhile, Lewis Kent has been caught by Max Coates on the last lap of the race.
He's got a problem.
He may even lose the lead.
I don't believe this. 1 corner to go, and Max Coates is going to take advantage of an issue, surely, for the Hyundai. And Lewis Kent, in tragic fashion, is going to be denied the race victory. He will still win the TCR UK category, but Max Coates on the final corner takes the race victory by 0.7 of a second. What on earth happened there? Meanwhile, for 4th place, Henry Neal almost gets served a bit of a bump there by James Turkington, but James, classy driver, keeps it clean and avoids the contact. Wakefield goes 3rd, Henry Neal 4th, and James Turkington 5th. But what happened to Lewis Kent, the Hyundai that had run faultlessly all race long, is pulling over now as soon as he's crossed the start-finish line. And Max Coates, who was over 2 seconds behind at the start of the lap, I bet he was as shocked as anyone when he saw the Hyundai pulling over, and he is able to take the race victory. What drama out of nowhere, crushing there for Lewis Kent, but Max Coates gets the race victory.
I think Lewis Kent is thinking, what do I have to do to get some luck with this car? Because even when it looks as though it's going to look right, he's pulled off to the circuit now, so wherever the problem is, he's trying to pull it in so he can bring it back to park firm as quickly as possible to avoid any further damage. Even when it looks as though it's going to all come right to him, something seems to go wrong. He didn't even get out of Alton Park. Do you think it was turbo problems? But unfortunately, it wasn't good. Here's the replay.
The gap's already come down, hasn't it, by this point? So it was an ongoing issue. The car doesn't look happy under braking, but he's probably just frustratedly just braking as late as he can to hang on. Bit of smoke, which could have been tyre smoke. There's nothing evidently wrong with the car. Now, their issue at Alton Park was electrical. The general rule, if there's nothing hanging off the car and there's no smoke coming from the car, it's probably electrical, and they are the hardest problems to diagnose, aren't they? Fingers crossed they get the car fixed before race 2 later on, but that is, I am dejected for him, because I know how hard that team have been working to try and get this race victory, and they're robbed of it yet again. So, in dramatic fashion, Max Coates is your winner in the Dunlop Tyres Touring Car Trophy. Lewis Kent still gets the TCR UK victory, because remember, Max Coates is not running in TCR UK, the car not running to the correct homologation regulations. Mark Wakefield is 3rd and 2nd in TCR UK, with Henry Neal 4th. James Turkington 5th, fell short of that top 4 finish by just 0.4 of a second, and realistically probably 1 lap more was needed to get past Henry Neal. Nick Halstead 6th, Darrell Wilson is 7th, and Alex Day will be classified, I think, just about as a finisher, despite being 9 laps down in the flag. But thankfully, Sherman was out there on circuit, and hopefully will be out there running more competitively in race 2 later on. And breathe. Well, that race, Scott, the first 10 minutes or so, brilliant, really, really good, proper touring car racing.
Agreed.
After that, it became a case of tyre management and who was maybe coming on strong in the second half of the race. Really impressed by James Turkington's long run pace. And then disaster for Lewis Kent at the end. There wasn't really a dull moment, and that is why the TCR UK Formula, for me, has to work, because you can't argue with the entertainment that we just experienced there.
It was a typical touring car race. Everyone goes mad in the first half of the race. Everyone then sits back and manages their time for the second half of the race, and we get a dramatic finish. Typical of what you usually see in a touring car race. A fantastic effort from all the guys out there, and some great performances, breakout performances from the likes of Mark Wakefield and James Turkington there, and Nick Houser as well, of course.
Yeah.
He was up there having some great battles with the likes of Henry Neal and Darrell Wilson. The fact that these guys on their TCR UK debuts in their first ever race in TCR UK cars were able to adapt as quickly as they were means they're not only naturally talented, but means if they could possibly stick it out for the rest of the year in these cars, who knows, they could start to take the fight to the likes of Lewis Kent, who probably still has trying to build up as many points as he can as to get himself back up the standings in TCR UK, but they can be dark horses to get themselves a really good position in the end of the standings at the end of the year.
Well, Mark Wakefield, I mean, he received that car this weekend, hadn't turned a wheel of testing pre-event, and he's on the podium with a magnificent drive that from 6th place on the grid. Right then, highlights of a dramatic third round of the TCR UK Championship with the Dunlop Tyres Touring Car Trophy saw Lewis Kent almost lead from lights to flag. He held on to the first position off the line. Max Coates went with him in second. The real battle early on was the one for third place, as a defensive Darrell Wilson in the Vauxhall Astra tried to fend off all comers from behind. Henry Neal was the first on his tail. He got up the inside on a couple of occasions before finally making it stick down at Redgate Corner, with James Turkington trying to follow him through. Ran wide round the outside. There was a bang of wheels with Wilson, and the Astra moved back ahead. That all allowed Henry Neal to pull a decent gap, whilst on the final lap of the race, heartbreak for the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad. Lewis Kent's Hyundai i30M slowing mysteriously with less than half a lap to go, and handing the race victory to Max Coates and the DAT Racing squad, who win the Touring Car Trophy. The victory in TCR UK goes to Lewis Kent, but I think that will be little comfort for the man who feels he should have taken the victory. Race 2 coming up later on. Will he be lucky there? We'll find out later.